Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of the Papcom Podcast. I'm Cameron.
I'm Anthony. What's
I'm good
going on?
today. It's interesting. I don't think we've had this constellation before yet, just the two of us.
We have not. It's been me and Justin, as
Yep,
the viewers know. I think it's you and Seb.
yep. And then Justin and I did a podcast together once.
Yes.
So now we're just missing you and Seb and Justin and Seb, and then I think we're complete. Then we've done all pairings that we could ever do.
Trifecta. That's not a triangle. There we go. The trifecta.
It's neither a triangle nor is it a trifecta because there's four people.
Quadfecta. The quadfecta.
The
Or
quadfecta.
squarefecta.
How are you doing, Anthony? How have your last 2 weeks been?
It's been good. I was in PA for a little bit to see some old college friends. Had some family reunions I went to. It's nice to see everyone. Um, I went to my dad's side family reunion and my mom's side family reunion, like, back to back. It was kinda
Okay,
crazy.
sounds
Ate
like
some
it.
great food. They smoked barbecue. They had, like, this little smoker, and, like,
Nice.
I didn't know the process it takes to smoke meats. Like, you have to do that at 6 in the morning, and you just keep turning. You just keep turning and turning and turning.
If you're doing it right, it's like a 12, 18-hour process. It's ridiculously long. Like I couldn't do it. Like I
It's
just don't have
insane.
the time. I don't have the time. But yeah, man, that sounds like great. Family reunion and barbecue. That's the way to do it, man. Like it's the way to
It
do it.
is. What about you?
Oh man, what about me? Well, my birthday was on Friday, which was fun. Quarter of a century old now, which feels weird.
You could have
Feels
your
very
quarter life
weird.
crisis
Yeah, I
if you
had
want one.
I had a conversation with someone recently that was like, "I feel like your quarter life crisis starts at 23 and ends at like 27." I'm like, "That's a fair assessment." Just trying to figure out what you're doing with your life, and I think now that I just graduated from college, I'm like, "Okay, so now I have like literally nothing in the pipeline, like nothing to plan and all that kind of stuff." But also I am gearing up for the next short, so you know excited for that. I can't say much yet. Um, Anthony is in fact a part of it, so that's
Yes.
exciting.
I'm very excited.
Uh, Always love working with you, bud. And
Same.
yeah, I don't know if there's anything much more I can say. I'm writing the third draft right now. The whole team's like waiting on me for me to get it done. I feel like
Yeah, the second draft was fantastic, and that's all I'm gonna say, so I'm excited to see
it,
the third draft.
I feel like I had a long chat with a friend of mine, and she was like, gave me some really great points of stuff that I needed to hear. So I think we're only going up. But yeah, because of my birthday and everything, I decided I was gonna choose the movie, and yeah, Moonrise Kingdom is one of my favorite, if not my favorite film of all time.
Did I watch the right Moonrise?
Did you not? No, I spelt it right.
You did.
The Wes Anderson film from 2012.
I watched Moonrise about the horses.
Have you ever seen Moonrise Kingdom?
Nope.
Cool. Well, so what I'm hearing is we're 0 for 2 when it's
We are
just
over
you and one
2.
other person
Yeah. I'm a bad luck charm.
in. Yeah. Wow.
I'm the issue.
I
It's me.
Hi. Well, since you didn't watch the movie, you get to tell us what the movie is about because that's what we did last time someone didn't watch the movie. And therefore,
Yeah. The year is 1965.
are you just reading the no, no, you can't, that's not fair. That's not fair.
Fine, fine. I'll give it a base assessment of
You can use the poster. and stills from the movie that you can find. And otherwise, I will give you nothing else. I will not allow you to do anything else.
Alright, they go on an adventure
That yes.
almost like Goonies
Nope. Okay.
on an
We're getting
island.
getting colder. Lovely.
It's a love story.
We're
Love's
getting
in it slash musical.
getting colder again, but okay.
Love story slash comedy
Okay.
about
Yeah.
girls no, Boy Scouts and a family?
Yeah. I'm gonna stop you right there. It's a love story between a Boy Scout and a girl. Both feel misunderstood, and so they decide to run away together to try to leave from society. And they all live on this island together. And in the meantime, the what we find out is that the boy is an orphan, and it's also about the interconnectivity of all the adults that are in this world, including Tilda Swinton as social services, which iconic role. Bruce Willis is in it. Bill Murray is in it. Frances McDormand is in it. It is one of my favorite films of all time. It is also one of my favorite Wes Anderson films of all time. And I think it was right in that sweet spot of like iconic Wes Anderson films between like that and right after came Grand Budapest. And so like he was like on his like high. Like I think he just shot Fantastic Mr. Fox as well. It's like those like from there until Isle of Dogs is like where I would say he like peaked for like the masses. Um and yeah, I feel this was one of his best films of all time. It's super hilarious and funny and has this, Anderson-y aesthetic, and all that kind of stuff. So it was a really great film. I guess you will now watch it.
I will. I
It's
will.
on Peacock, by the way, because I watched it this morning because I was like, I know this movie by heart, but also I should watch it again,
For a refresh.
um, for a refresh. And it was a really, the it is everything that you know out of a Wes Anderson film with like everything from like a love story, and it was absolutely adorable. I love it. What other Wes Anderson films have you seen so far?
A lot. I'm just gonna pull up a list of all of his because I
Cool,
don't remember off the top of my head.
for sure.
So I've seen Asteroid City,
Of course,
obviously. Fantastic Mr. Fox, I think, is one of his
iconic.
iconic classic ones. Me and my friend Nick, when we went to college, me and him both wrote a essay on that based
Nice.
off just like the animation cinematography. Uh, Sing, obviously. I've seen Hotel. I can never say it right.
The Grand
Chev.
Budapest.
Yes, yes. The French Dispatch.
One of his weirder ones, I would say, especially in the post like Budapest era. I think that was one of his weirder ones
I
for
would agree.
sure. Yeah.
That one, and then I've seen Fantastic Mr. Fellini.
Okay.
Uh,
So you didn't see Isle of Dogs,
no,
and you didn't see anything before. Oh no, you saw Fox, so therefore you
Fox
didn't see um Life Aquatic of Steve Zissou. You didn't
or
see
Rushmore.
Bottle Rocket. You didn't see Rushmore. I believe that's all of them. Then we
Yeah,
just counted off.
his
Um,
newer stuff.
yeah,
Not newer stuff,
so
older stuff.
that's older stuff.
Yeah.
About to say. Um, I find it very interesting, and that's why I want to talk about like director fandoms in this episode because I think Wes Anderson's a great example of that. Like this idea of like a fandom of a director that like it comes in later and then like but when you look back it's almost like seeing how the artist kind of progressed in his career and then, like, where the high happened, right? Um, yeah, I think it's an iconic
Is
film, I really love it.
is he your favorite director?
I think he is mine, yeah, for sure. I think and I don't even like his style is amazing, but I love his films because they're so iconic in style,
I get that.
and they're all so similar in that style, that it's just like you look at it and go, "Wow," it's like always a very, like, constant film, right? And quality, I think, varies in the fact of, like, I think Anderson loves to be weird, and sometimes he leans into the weirdness and it works, and sometimes he doesn't. We are just talking to someone just mentioned French Dispatch as a film that like was a very divisive one out of all of them because like it doesn't build up the way you think it will, and it never. It's truly like it is a basically it's a newspaper article, a newspaper, and it goes to the articles of the last edition, and so like it's just I think you can't find a cohesive story in there as much as you can for Grand Budapest or a life an asteroid city, for example, right? And
Yeah.
so I think and I don't know what his where he gets the leaning into the weird from and where he like dials it back or not. Um but do you what other because I guess we can move on to the topic if
Yeah,
you know
because the one I watched was about horses. It was just
lovely.
Moonrise, yeah.
Uh fun.
So I'm a big Scorsese fan.
Okay. Of course.
Big
Classic.
Scorsese fan. Goodfellas, Bronx Tale, Irishman. He did Irishman, right? Yeah, he did Irishman.
Yes, he did The Irishman.
I don't think he did. I think I was wrong. I don't think he did Bronx Tale. I think that might have been someone else.
Bronx Tale?
Yeah, I know he
Sounds
did
like
Goodfellas. I can't remember if it was him or another famous mafia director. Just big fan of most of his work. I've seen Taxi Driver is also really fantastic. He hasn't produced. I think all of his older stuff's a lot better than his newer stuff.
interesting. I mean, would you say that about like a Spielberg as well? Because I feel like Spielberg kind of goes in and out too. Like you
No,
go into like Ready Player One was good, Big Friendly Giant was good, but then you have like iconic classics even to this day. Bridge of Spies, The Fablemans are both like amazing films that he made recently and is not part. I feel like I think that has to do with the director. I think Scorsese just has been doing it for so long that it's just like you never
yeah,
know what you're gonna get. And even like he just did Killers of the Flower Moon, and I really love that film. Like I thought it was a
Killers of the Flower
really
Moon, yeah.
great film. Um, and then I watched The Departed recently as well, back in February. Um, and that was a great film. That was 2006. That was towards the second half of his career, right? So I think I think the issue becomes when you have the same director with like a very like iconic style. And I think most of the fandoms are ones with iconic styles, right? Like I think there are Spielberg fans, but there's no Spielberg fan like there is a Scorsese fan that grew up with the mob films or a Tarantino, for example, or
Yeah,
um, you know, like I think Spielberg just has such a range in its like how he makes his films that I think that becomes harder to distinguish, right? Because I think a lot of people like Spielberg's films. I think he just flies on the radar in that aspect. But Tarantino is another one that like
Tarantino. I don't know.
iconic style, but you can see so with that one with him, it's always interesting because there is a division between before Inglorious or Inglorious Bastards is that cutoff line because right after they edited Inglorious Bastards, his longtime editor passed away.
Yeah,
And it's said that she was the driving force behind a lot of his films. And I
and
think you really see that after Django, where like Django still stays within that like frame, but like Hateful Eight, I love that film, but it's long and it likes to be long and its pacing is long, right? Like what made those like films like Pulp Fiction or Inglourious Bastards, what made those films so iconic is that they were fast and they were quick and they were, you know, on the money, and never really had a lame moment um,
Yeah,
in them.
but his edit yeah, I could see that, but at the same time, like, I still feel like he's out of the 3, Spielberg and, Scorsese, I think his, like, earlier stuff or newer stuff still holds true today. Like, I don't like Scorsese, like, if you compare Scorsese's newer movie to his newer movie, I think Tarantino's gonna be better than Scorsese, hands down. And I love Scorsese, like, he's one of my favorite directors, like, also because, like, I love the mob movies, I'm Italian, like, that's also why too, like, a lot of my heritage is in those movies, and, I love learning about, like, how this family is connected to that family and how that's connected to possibly someone I know and X, Y, and Z and blah, 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 blah. But, even Spielberg, I still feel like Spielberg's newer stuff is still either on par to his older stuff or, like, just as good. What Scorsese is missing. It's not the same.
But like I think also Scorsese has made a lot of films.
Yes.
Like, and I hate the adage that Tarantino said, but like the idea that the longer, like the older you are and the longer you do this, I guess I don't know if it's out of touch is the right word. I think that's what he uses, but like your films start to change or not change as much, right? And so like I think the other thing that we look at when we look at older films is we look at the times, we look at, what they were previously. Um and then look back and go, well, wait, what is our, you know, like look out like how do we look on this film now versus how we did 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I think because of that, it's just like, and that plus the more famous you get, the more leeway you get. And I think if you know how to deal with that, then that helps you. But if you don't, then I think it hurts you, right? And I think a lot of directors start to fall under that like issue of like at the height of your career is like when you're at your biggest, but also when people will give you just enough of a leash to give you your creative freedom, but not enough where their uh, where their style, like where someone can still say something to them that they listen to. I think once you get longer into the career, there's a sense of like, well, I know what I'm doing. Look how much success I've had. I think that hurts you a bit too.
Yeah. Almost kinda like their ego could get in the way in a sense just because, like, if you were a Scorsese won a few Oscars. I mean, every director we've mentioned has won an Oscar. Um,
Uh, mm, oh yeah, Wes Anderson has won an
yeah,
Oscar now. He just
yeah,
won his first for the short.
yeah,
Yeah.
the short. So, I feel like when it comes to, like, that, yeah, you could definitely make the argue that, like, almost a sense their ego is gonna get in the way or, like, I know it all, why would I change my style or why would I change the way I direct? But at the same time, like, I feel like if you I mean, this is totally different conversation I'm leading this to, but, like, if you wanna be the best, then you have to continually push yourself and make changes occasionally
But what do you
to
consider
strive
pushing
for that.
yourself, right? Like, what do you consider pushing yourself? Because there
Trying
there is
something
a like,
new.
because like even if you do something new, right? Like, because then you get the issue of like if I do something new as a director who's known for these kinds of films, then you kind of get taken off the beaten path, and now your home base doesn't like your core audience doesn't like you, and most likely the wider audience won't care as much because that's not what you're known for. Look at like M Night Shyamalan, The Last Airbender, as like an example of that, and that
Yeah, that was a rough watch. That was a very, very rough watch. but
but that's that's a big issue of you know, how do you the movie wasn't great, but Shyamalan is also someone who has a very interesting filmography and an interesting history
he does.
because I just saw Trap too, yesterday, yesterday actually,
I haven't seen it
and
yet.
it was fun, but I feel like he's a very hit or miss person, right? Like either his films are excellent or they miss the mark, and I felt like this one missed the mark more. And that's the second Shyamalan film this year that I've seen in theaters that missed the mark, and it's really annoying. So,
Yes,
you
that's for
know,
sure.
the
Do
fact
you
that his daughter made a crap load of money on the last one, but that's a different story for a different day. Anyway,
do you think that there are like you as a director and you have a team working on this next short film you're working on? Do you feel like you need a team? Not do you need a team, but the team behind you helps you produce the film and make it kind of like a masterpiece, or do you think as a director yourself, like it doesn't really naturally doesn't matter, but like you kind of help guide the process?
for sure it helps. Because that's one of the more important things as far as making a film goes, is having a team around you that can help execute your vision. Because if as a director, I'm not the one sitting behind the camera. I'm not the one editing. I'm not the one acting. I need that
Right.
team to kind of support me, right? I think a director knows a great director will know his vision and will know what's right and what's wrong and be able to defend it. Um, but he can't do that without a team around him that is
Yeah,
good.
and can execute.
I
Yeah,
the interesting one I've gotten this from 2 people, James Cameron as, a director, and I don't know, James Cameron's very interesting to me because I don't even know how many films he's made,
I was gonna say
honestly.
I don't. I know I've seen a few of his films. I just have to refresh my memory on the films that he has made.
Cause oh, right, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
Avatar, Titanic,
Avatar, Terminator,
Terminator, Predator,
Titanic,
not Predator, Aliens. Predator
the Alien.
was. Why am I zoning out? Predator
That I can't tell you.
is. I know who it is. I just can't remember the top of my head. He's done a lot. He's done so many.
Just looking at his
It was John McTiernan? Really? I thought it was
I think the I don't know if it's an issue. I think my gripe with, uh, people like Cameron, I think George Lucas is the same way, is I think in a public persona kind of way, yes, he's a very much he's the director, but I also feel like both of them have this like issue, and I don't know if issue is the right word, but this gripe of they're not their idea of what makes them great is the world that they build and not the story that they tell.
yeah,
And it's the
because
biggest gripe I have with both of them,
Avatar
and have had for a while.
yeah. Well, do you think it's the writing though? Because, like, the story that they base is all based off the writer. I feel like they're better writers than they are directors. Not saying because, like, Star Wars, when it first came out, it was about that, like you said, the world, like the universe, the good and the force, the light versus the dark.
The dark, right?
Um, and it pretty much is this whole story about this whole world in a sense, a science fiction world in a
Did he
sense
write
that he
all
wrote.
3 original films though?
I don't remember he wrote
Because
them or if he stole them from a book. I can't remember that.
no, he definitely created the story, I believe himself, but I don't know if he wrote them because he didn't direct all 3 films.
No, I thought he wrote all 3
Um,
films.
he might have. I don't know anymore.
So,
Um,
um,
uh, back to the research I go. Uh,
so I think that's the fandom
but but
that I think is still now today. Like you watch Star Wars because of the storyline and the set design and this aura behind it, not because of the acting and the shots and the cinematography.
but but is the writing that great?
Well,
Is
no.
is it that great? Right? like, there's
It's
also a difference between world building and, you know, world building and writing the actual screenplay, you
there is a
know?
difference. There is a difference, and there's a lot of continuity issues with Star Wars, especially looking back
Interesting.
after you studied films.
So he wrote episodes 4 so Lucas wrote episodes 4 and 6, but not 5.
Not 5. Who wrote 5?
Lucas did, wrote the like, he created the story, but did not was not credited as writing the screenplay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I also find that a fascinating little detail,
Then who
which
was
I'm
credited?
happy with because, when you see how a three-part, trilogy works when 3 different people write it without a continuous story, and you see how well that turned out, the sequel trilogy, um, but, yeah. I mean, but I think Lucas is interesting because he's able to create great worlds. Because he did both, I mean, he wrote both the Star Wars story as well as Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
Right? And Indiana Jones is also not, I would say, the best writing of the world, but the story is pretty spot on,
it's a story. But that
and
brings
he's
back
able
to
to do a
your
good
argument.
story. Right.
Yeah. What do you think
Um,
of Ridley Scott then?
mhm.
'Cause he's done, like, alien movies, he's done, like, a lot of science fiction. I think his style is it's different than George Lucas's, but it's very similar. Both of them kinda, like, got their peak films around, maybe George Lucas first for a while, but
But I mean, yeah, but he also did Gladiator,
he did
which
do
is a great
Gladiator.
film. He did Blade Runner, which was less of a great film. Um,
It's
I
not
hate to
bad.
say it. Is it that bad?
It's
It's not
entertaining.
amazing.
No.
Sure, we can call it entertaining, but its story makes no sense. But that's a different story for a different day. Apparently,
Fair.
a friend of mine said the director's cut is a lot better than the original film, which that's an
I don't think
interesting setup.
I saw Director's Cut. He also did The Martian too, which I thought was
He did
one
the
of
Martian,
his fantastic, like, that is, I think, his best
but then
film
he
that
did
he
weird.
has done.
Then he did films like Thelma and Louise, which comes out
I
of
pretend
nowhere.
I pretend to forget that he did that. It's in the back of my mind that I don't wanna remember that he did that.
Um, you know,
He did.
I
Kingdom of
think he's an
Heaven
interesting
too.
director. I think he's done some great films, but I think he's similar to Shyamalan, which is like a hit or miss. Because even like
Okay.
Napoleon,
Yeah. I
it
thought
was a
Napoleon was
movie.
different. It was, but that's also his something new too that he tried, and I guess that brings back to the
That's
point,
fair.
like, is trying something new, like, it's tough to execute. I feel like it's easier for an actor to do a role that's new than a director to write and produce something that's new.
That's fair, but I would also say he miscast that completely. But that's a different
He
story for
definitely
a
did.
different
Yeah.
day. I like this comment though about Clint Eastwood. Um, um, because I think we've seen this a couple of times now, where actors become directors and then become like Ron Howard is another one that I'm like always surprised.
Ron
Um,
Howard is
Nixon Frost.
Nixon
He
Frost.
did Star Wars
What's
Episode 8. Um,
Emily Blunt too? Didn't she help direct, what's it with they can't talk?
oh, Quiet. That was his. That was
Quiet
her. That
Place.
was John Krasinski.
I thought she also helped out with that, like, she was, like, the AD.
She might have AD'd, but he was the director. Like that was
And
the
he also
whole.
edited too. He edited one movie, I don't remember which one he did too, but or he also
Who are you talking
edited.
about now?
John Krasinski.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, Ron Howard, Apollo 13, Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Like,
Grinch.
I think now we're getting to like a territory. Like, I think Clint Eastwood is interesting because he did a very big tonal shift in his career. But I also would say he is still to this day known more for his acting than his directing.
I would agree with that. He's known more for his acting than his directing, but he's also I feel like he's done more in acting than he's directed. Like, he's been in more roles, so he's gonna be better because he's more consistent. That's obviously, he's more consistent, he's done it for longer, but, um
Fair. I mean, but I think it goes either way because at that point, like Ron Howard was also an actor, but I don't think many people remember him being an actor. I think most people remember him being a director at this point.
true, but how long was he acting for? Like, how many movies was he in?
IMDb says 89 credits.
Oh, wow, okay, that's a decent amount.
Um,
How many did he direct? I forget off the top of my head.
50 something.
Okay. Those are 2 different dramatically different numbers.
I mean, but and then you also have like, yeah, trying to see. Because Ron Howard's biggest thing, I believe, was the Annie Griffith Show, which was on in the '60s, I believe, or in the '50s, something like that. I might be wrong with that, but that's what I remember. Um, yeah, the Andy Griffith Show was in the '60s. That's what he's known for the most. Um, but yeah, I mean, and then of course, since I think this is supposed to be like Oppie, like Oppenheimer, which
I
I
was
think
gonna be like, yeah, it's Christopher Nolan. I was about to mention
Christopher
him
Nolan's
too.
another one that's like, but he's also had excellence,
Or
right?
Tim Burton too.
Tim Burton too, but again, Tim Burton's one of those that's known for his creativity in the stories. Because,
Yeah,
like, for example, I
Nightmare
his
Before
most famous.
Christmas.
Right, but he didn't direct Nightmare Before Christmas.
He did not. No,
He
he
did
did not.
not. That is, and so like he's known as this but it's his style, of course. But like, I think he's better known as the world that he builds around him rather than the films that. I mean, yes, he's also a very famous director. He's done a lot of amazing films, but his most famous movie of all time was one he did not direct. I would say.
Yeah,
I
but
would say
that's also
Nightmare Before
his
Christmas is like bigger than Beetlejuice, for example.
Beetlejuice. That's all based off the animation style that he did. Like, he took
That's true.
something so incredible, like taking like clay animation. I I don't know if this is an accurate statement, but I believe he was one of the first people to do that, and maybe not the first, but the way he did it in cinema was different from other types of styles.
Yeah. And then Henry Selick, of course, being his disciple. I think Henry Selick would have been a very iconic animation director had he made more films.
Yeah, he doesn't have many films, and I don't
No,
know if that's because, like, money reasons and budgeting, or if it's because
no,
of you
no.
don't
He
think so?
left. He left the industry for 20 years.
Do you know why?
Yeah, because he hated Disney.
Everyone
He
hates Disney. Well,
he worked with
not
Disney
everyone,
on
but
Coraline. He worked with Disney and Coraline and was like, "This is not the movie I wanted to make," and it was so frustrating to make Coraline that he was like, "I'm done with this industry." And then he made something like 2 years ago. Actually, I think that's because I was thinking about a Hollywood movie we could do. That's the Halloween movie I think we're gonna do is Henry Selick's film for like 2023 because like I
okay.
really want to see it, and it's supposed to be that same like style as like Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline, like very similar. But I think, yeah, I think it becomes very hard to truly like know what to like. Who would you say is the most annoying fandom out of all of them?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I wanna say Torrentino or Nolan.
Yeah, I think I would edge Noland as a toss spot only because I feel like they're the Rick and Morty fans of cinema directors.
They definitely are. I feel like they whatever he produces or whatever he directs, and he when he comes out with any feature films, they already immediately assume that it needs to be nominated for an Oscar, and that it
But not just that, it's like, "Oh, I am smarter than you
yeah,
because you need to watch this," like, and I know some Nolan fans that, like, are absolutely amazing people. However, internet loves to be the internet and goes, "If you didn't understand this movie, then you haven't watched enough times, or you're just not smart enough to understand it." And I go, "That's not how this works."
that's not
Like, there are
that
films
is
that you
true.
have to watch twice to truly understand, yes, but you don't like, that's not the, like, sometimes there's, like, I've seen it once where, like, someone watched a Christopher Nolan film, like, 4 or 5 times, like, I finally understand the film. Like, if it took you 5 times to truly understand this film,
That doesn't make it a great film.
that doesn't make it great. Like, Nolan has made some great films, but, like, ah, I hate like Tarantino fans can be vile because they love the blood and the gore, and they'll get very, like, defensive about the blood and the gore.
Yeah. Branching off of this then how do you feel about this is not a director, but this is still a fandom, the Marvel fan base, which I feel like they also have whatever Marvel movie comes out is gonna be fantastic, and that's not the case, especially
My
in recent
issue
times.
I think the issue with the Marvel fan base is that there's actually 2 fan bases, and we never really talk about there's 2 or there's actually 3. There is, like, the Marvel films that will watch all Marvel films, that includes
Okay.
Sony and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Then you
Yeah.
have
And Fox,
MCU, all of the
Cinematic Universe, or
which is all of the Disney stuff, so they're basically a Disney fan, but with superheroes. And then there's the comic book people that love the films because of the comic books that will then annoy the heck out of me. And I know people that do this, and I've said that they're wrong before. They basically go, "Well, it wasn't like the comic book, therefore it's bad." And I hate that sentiment because it's just not true. You
yeah.
cannot equate a comic book with a film and go, "This is one to one. There have to be changes made," especially when a comic book was like written 40 years ago.
Do you feel the same with the book, though? There's a lot of books are based off movies, like, this is not a movie,
Yeah.
it's a TV show, but like Game of Thrones, right? Like, a lot of people argued that that piece of cinema did not go off the book, but yet it made the
What didn't?
franchise, it didn't. There was, like, apparently, spoiler
The
alert, I'm
last
sorry if you but Jon
what
Snow was died in the book and didn't come back.
that could be that I don't know. Um, the one that I did know was that fun fact, they didn't have the books last 2 seasons,
That too. Yeah.
right? And I think
Not had the
that's
books
like
last 2 seasons.
I think you can have a movie based off of a book be different from the book. I think the biggest trap people fall into as filmmakers adapting books is that they try to be too much like the book, and therefore you pinpoint like a story based on the book, but you don't get the nuance of the book, and therefore the movie isn't as good as the book itself. I think that's where it like kind of comes from. So I think you can make changes to a book or to a series or to something, but and I think sometimes you should and have to because the medium is just different. But you need to be aware of the over underlying themes and underlying objectives and ideas and how you want to portray those, right? Because
Yeah.
you can have a differing idea than, for example, the author on some of its themes and show that same exact
True.
events, but different, thing comes out of it. That is definitely possible.
That but I also feel like you need to have, like, the author present when you're creating it into a screenplay. Because
To an
because of
extent.
this to an extent, because, like, when you're obviously, when you read a book, I'm gonna read it, you're gonna read it, and we're both gonna envision 2 different worlds unless it's super descriptive. Um,
Sure.
and I feel like sometimes the author gets upset when the director doesn't take the world that the author envisioned for the writer, and the director creates it in its own vision.
There are films where there is a how do I say? There are films where the author is an integral part of the writing process, and there are films where the author is not.
True.
I think you always need to consult the author to understand the underlying ideas of the book, but to blindly go, yes, the author and always needs to be consulted and always needs to be right, because that's the other thing. If you bring them into this process, you make it very strong, then you need to be very clear that chances are it's going to be the author's story told on screen and not yours.
Not yours. In that case, you're not even writing the screenplay, the author is.
Right. And there are a lot of films where the where the author has written the screenplay and it's been a great film. Can't think of any at the moment, but I also can't think of any books right now that were movies that are based on books because my brain is blanking. Um,
True.
but I think that's kind of the one of the core things is like I think you always need to consult someone with their original work, but also understand that fine line, and they also need to understand the fine line, right? Like you need to know what the ideas are behind it, and you also like speaking on like that. You also need to be clear about the original IP of a book or a story like uh, the example that I like to give is Haunted Mansion because I love that ride. But the only good movie version was made by the Muppets, and I will take that opinion
Mm,
to my grave, not my grade, um, because it doesn't understand like the whole movie. I don't know if you saw the newest one with Danny DeVito.
I saw I got halfway through it. Last time I was watching that one, was over my ex-girlfriend's house, and I passed out watching it with her and her family.
Nice, fun.
I'll rewatch it. Actually, I only saw,
I,
like, about an hour into it.
it was very fun, but I think the movie suffers from trying to be something it's not, which is a ride.
Yeah. Well, it's
Um,
tough, like, you can't really take an object or something like a roller coaster and turn it to a film, like, that's
Well,
tough.
as someone that's has been on the ride and knows its intricacies and knows like there are like small references within the film that like make it fun and make it like iconic. The issue being if you try to add that into a story without what I felt was an overarching storyline that made sense, then you have other issues. And that's why the the Muppet movie works. It's because it's funny, it's lighthearted, and doesn't try to 100% mimic the movie. It just tries to use like the ride as like a story vessel while bringing in your beats that would normally be in the story within that story, right?
I
And
agree.
I think that's the
Yeah.
main issue. That's why Pirates of the Caribbean did so well, the movie.
That was a ride before it was a movie?
Yeah,
I
the
thought it was a movie
original
before it was
ride
a
was made
ride.
in the original Walt
Wow.
Disney was still alive when or which had just died when the original ride came to Disney World. It's like in the
I
70s.
have not gone to Disney World. I've been to Disney Springs, I've not gone to Disney World, so I've not been able to intake on these rides yet.
Same thing with Jungle Cruise is another one that like was
Jungle
a
Cruise,
ride
yeah.
before it was a movie. And that one
Jungle Cruise
was
was
not
fantastic, just because of Emily Blunt.
the movie was okay. It at least
You're
made
The
something
Rock.
interesting out of the story. Like it at
It
least
did.
made a story. Like that's not something that Haunted Mansion I feel did, like the new one. And I will gladly watch it again. But uh it was not a movie that I felt did anyone justice because it felt like it was trying to be too much of a thing. And but back to the topic of directors because that
Right.
is our topic.
What do you think is the biggest director fandom that you know of?
Biggest fandom?
Mhm. Like, you meet Joe Smo on the street, start talking about movies, and 9 out of 10, it's gonna be this director.
Hmm. See, I think honestly, I don't think most people will know about Wes Anderson, but I think they'll know who Wes Anderson is only because of that like trend that happened a few years back with his movies. And I think that's like kind of which is why like the Wes Anderson fandom isn't as bad as like others is because that one's based on the aesthetic of the movie and not as much on the films themselves. Um, but I think if you want to talk about like actual fandoms, I want to say the most famous one is going to be Tarantino.
Really? I was thinking, Spielberg.
See, but I don't think Spielberg has that gravitas of like everyone's gonna know Spielberg, but no one's gonna talk about, "Man, I love all of his films," because everyone knows he's at hits and misses. People will know him because he's famous, but there is no, like, fandom around him like there is around a Scorsese or a Nolan or, a Tarantino. Or like Shyamalan, for example, right? Like, that's another one that's like
Like,
that's a
but I feel
fandom
like
right there.
it's only Spielberg because, like, even people who don't understand, not maybe I shouldn't say don't understand cinema, but don't dive into cinema like people like us, they're gonna pick Spielberg just because of the relevancies and all of his popular hits, especially in the '70s and the '80s.
But then what's your question, right? Because I feel like your question isn't which fandom is the biggest. I think your question is more, if I ask 100 random people on the street, what's the most famous director of all time? Then they'll go Spielberg. But will they say
Yeah,
they're a big fan of Spielberg? I don't know. Like Spielberg's made some great films, but he's
he
also
did.
made some questionable ones.
He's had some few misses. I mean,
Right.
every director has a few misses, though. I don't think there's, one director who hasn't had a movie that's missed.
But I think there's a difference between a Tarantino who had Jackie Brown as the big miss as his third film. Um, and his like but like there's still a huge aura around him to his day of like the people that will watch him, right? Versus like a Spielberg that's like, oh, Spielberg, that's a name I know. I'll go see that movie because it's Steven Spielberg. I know who that is. Those are two very different things.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned Harry Potter. I don't think Harry Potter was made by the same director.
I don't
I
know
think
who
it's
directed Harry
arranged.
Potter, to be honest.
I think it was I think it's a whole list of films,
Yeah, there's, like,
like, directors.
Chris
I think there's
Columbus,
4 or
David
5 directors
Yates,
that did the
Mike Newell, Alfonso Cuarón.
yeah, I know he did, Cuarón did one film.
But I feel
Um,
like Harry Potter, like we talked about before, it's the world that people get enticed with, not necessarily the director, like Star Wars.
yes, and they're enamored by J.K. Rowling and not by
Yeah,
the director. Like, I can't
yeah.
you I don't think anyone could tell me who directed episode 4 of, Harry Potter. Whereas people will think that, um like, I think Star Wars is different because people think that, um, Lucas directed 5 and 6, even though he didn't.
No, he didn't. Do you really think that? I feel like
Yeah.
that was kind of like a common, like everyone knows that he did not direct 5 and 6. He only directed like 1 and 2.
He directed 4 and 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3 and 4, yeah.
And then, of course, Disney came in and excuse me, did, 7 and 9 were by Abrams, and 8 were by Ron
Yeah.
Howard.
Abrams wasn't bad. Also, I feel like I don't see many wow, Abrams fandoms like I do.
There is an Abrams fandom, though.
I think it's very, very small. I think they're
Because
kinda like
but I think that the issue being J.J. Abrams was known for his horror stuff for a while because he had the Cloverfield franchise that he created.
David Cloverfield. Speaking of
Um,
horror, Stephen King. I don't think he's a director, but I know he's a writer for a
no,
lot of
he
them.
just wrote them.
He just wrote them. Dude, did he
Um,
have a director that directed most of his
I don't think so. I
screenplays?
think it's been a whole range of directors.
Okay.
Who was a horror director that
Oh,
there's
Keel.
Carpenter, right? John
Carpenter.
Carpenter?
There's also, I don't know if you consider him horror, but Jordan Peele.
That's true. There is a Jordan
There's a
Peele
big,
fan base.
yeah, like with what was it? It, not if, with the
No.
UFO.
Up?
What was it? Up. Thank
Up?
you. Up.
Up was a great film too.
It's a great film,
I
and
think the
he
first letter film that I reviewed on Letterboxd, but that's a different story. Um,
and
I
his
yeah,
stuff is
but again, Jordan Peele is interesting because he did not start as a director.
no. He actually started in comedy, which is the weird part, and then got into like film directing. So he had this whole shorts, his little
Yeah,
comedy shorts with Keel,
yeah, Keenan and Peele. That was a whole.
Keenan and
Wasn't
Peele,
that on
yeah.
Comedy Central show
Yeah,
too?
Comedy Central, and then you could also, like, watch it on You I used to watch it on YouTube, but so I didn't have Comedy Central when I was a kid. But yeah,
Those are iconic. But he all I think that's an interesting because he's an interesting case study of because now he's also directed less films and he started more the producing end of things.
you're right, he has.
Because I don't know if has he directed anything since Up?
Up came
I
out
don't
in
think.
2021, 2020? I know it came out
Um. Oh yeah, he
sometime
did. He
before
did. I'm sorry. Oh no, he did. He did. Oh no, Nope was the name of that movie. I'm
Nope,
sorry.
2022.
Up was the Pixar film, and I'm a smart boy.
I
He only
agreed with you. So we were both wrong.
he directed 3 feature films so far, and he already has a fandom.
Monkey Man, I didn't see that one.
He did not direct it.
He did not.
No, he produced it.
He produced it, okay.
Yep.
Then no, Nup is probably no,
No,
the Get
Nope
Out
is
was
the
for
last.
it was first
Yeah,
got
Get
him.
Out was his first, then came Us, and then but
Candyman.
he's produced a good amount of stuff.
Was he a producer for Big Mouth or was he a director for Big Mouth?
Big Mouth? I don't
Yeah.
think he
On IMDb, what does it say on IMDb?
IMDb, I don't think he's in here for Big Mouth for directing or
Why is
producing.
it showing credited by no Andrew Goldberg. Nick Kroll, no. Yep.
Mhm. He also, the other side of it's also he did those 2 seasons of the rebooted Twilight Zone, which I actually did really enjoy.
I didn't think they're as good
They weren't as good as the original, but they were
as the
still good,
original.
and I think he wasn't in his element yet. That's the other issue that he
Okay.
had.
I think that was the first thing he actually directed, going out of Keel and Peele. No, I guess
Mm,
Us came out around that time too.
no, Get Out was his directorial debut.
Get Out in 2017.
He did not direct the Twilight Zone. He wrote it. He was
He
I think
wrote.
one of the
Oh,
writers team. Mm.
he always could write.
Yeah, he's a good writer, and I think
He's a
that's
very
the
good
thing.
writer.
It's like I think a lot of these directors that have these fandoms are also good writers because they're able to craft the story and execute it. I think that's the difference between a Scorsese and an Anderson and you know a Tarantino
Yeah.
versus like someone like I think like even Spielberg did not direct all his films, right?
No, I don't think he did either. I
He
think he
didn't
wrote
write
some
all
of
his films.
them.
He wrote
No,
some of them, but not all of
but he
them.
directed most of them. I think that's what separates a great director from a good director. Um,
I would disagree with. I think
you would?
a great director can also write direct someone else's work.
Yeah, but if you could make a masterpiece in writing and then also envision it and create a whole
Right.
world, that takes
If
a lot more
Yeah,
skill.
I think you're a great like a filmmaker and a great auteur if you're able to create the world around you, create, write the script, and direct it and produce. I think those three are like the crux of your like aura, right? It's like you can write something and produce it and direct it to the point where you know every single move that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Do we know what we're watching 2 weeks? I don't know if we know
I
yet.
believe it's in the group chat.
Was it you in 2 weeks? I believe.
Let me double check. Oh, I'm going too far.
I'll check your StreamYard to make sure.
Doo-doo-doo.
Because I think I tapped you to do the movie, the next movie. Um.
Alright, if it's me, then what was on the list that I sent to you? Oh, here it is.
Oh no, never
Let's do
mind. The next film we're gonna do. Speaking of Harry Potter, because it's Seb's next pick. It's the next pick.
That's what it is. The mine's gonna be Uncut Gems.
Yes, and we'll do Uncut Gems. I think shortly thereafter. Um.
Big,
Sebastian's
big.
gonna be Sebastian's film is gonna be a fun time. Um, Someone did a shot for shot remake of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, but with no budget, and
Oh,
that's
this
what
is
we're
gonna be
reviewing
fun.
in 2 weeks. Oh, it's gonna be
What's it
great.
called? I wanna the full name, just so I don't do a typo and do what I did again this week.
The fact that okay, I have no comment for the fact it's called Harry Potter and the Stone.
Harry Potter this time. Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. And
Perfect.
Justin will be back at that point too.
Justin will be back on his tour.
I-
What do you
He'll
think
be
would
back.
be yeah, from his tour, right?
Yeah, from his tour.
What do you think I know it's tough because we're not dumb, but what do you think would be Justin's and Seb's fandoms before we kick it off? I
Seb, I
feel like
think, is a hard one. I feel like Seb would. I think Justin though. I don't think he
it's Nolan,
has.
right?
You think Justin's a Nolan fan? I don't know. I think he would more tap into the animation department and just
Hmm,
start talking about animated films. And I think Seb is an interesting person because he has some very interesting film picks. Um, he might be closer to a Nolan or a Wes Anderson.
I
You
think
think
so.
Nolan? He might. I think he might
Not
tend
like
towards Nolan.
Tortino or I don't think
Did
it's
you say
Scorsese. I feel like it's
Tortino?
Scorsese.
It's
I did say
Tarantino.
Tor I said Tar yeah. My brain is still defrosting. Tarantino. Yes.
Um,
We're gonna pretend that it didn't happen. We'll cut that out in
it
post.
happened
There's no post for
twice,
live.
but it happened twice already this episode, but it's fine.
Yeah, that's I'm the comic relief. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I. Oh yeah, something that I should maybe do, even though you can't do it, is rate that movie. And Moonrise is a 10 out of 10, my favorite movie of all time. Come at me, I don't care.
I'm
Uh,
gonna get a 10.5 out of 10.
you need to watch it first and actually watch
10.5
it.
out of 10.
I will ask you in 2 weeks if you've seen it,
I will
and I
watch
will
it.
ask you. I will ask you a very pointed question that only
Towards it?
someone can answer about it next in 2 weeks. And if
Okay.
you don't get it right, then I'm gonna dump water on your head when I see you.
That's fine. We'll record it too so we can play it on the I'm gonna
Yep.
watch this. Why am I even saying this? I don't have to worry about this. It'll be fine.
But yeah. Anyway, that has been us. I hope you guys had a good time. We've had a very interesting conversation today. I feel like um,
It was a
I
good
really
one.
loved it. It was a really fun one talking about fan bases. Next week, Harry Potter and the Stone. Watch it up on the
It's available on
YouTube's
Peacock and Hulu.
it's it's not what? No, that's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yes, it is.
Since it's a shot-by-shot remake, and since it's very much not really an official film, it is available on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Available on YouTube.
I will send a link in a bit. But yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your next 2 weeks, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.